Now, in this section, I want us to look at physical and chemical properties. Okay, so look at the definitions. A physical property describes the look or feel of a substance. For example, if you look at this gold, this is a gold bar right here. So we will say that some of the physical properties is that it is opaque. Opaque simply means that you cannot see through, right? Opaque means you cannot see through. Any substance that you will not be able to see through it, we say it is opaque. Another physical property will be things like color. We will say this gold bar here is yellowish, okay? And what is a state? Because states of matter here can be solid, liquid, or gas. So we say that at 25 degrees Celsius or 96 or 97 degree Fahrenheit, we will say that this gold bar is a solid. And then density, remember we've talked about density before, mass per unit volume. We say that the density here is 19.3 grams per milliliters. So all of these properties here are physical properties because they describe the look of a thing, they describe the feeling of a thing. Now, if you look at this piece of diamond, the opacity of diamond, we say it is transparent because if you look through diamond, you should be able to see through, right? Anything that you can see through, we say is transparent. We will say that a gold is colorless and that at 25 degrees Celsius, it is a solid. The density of gold we say is 3.5 grams per milliliter. Okay. And then water here again will describe the opacity, the color. We say at 25 degrees Celsius is a liquid and the density is 1 gram per milliliter. So all of the things that describe the look or the feeling of a substance, all of those are physical properties. Okay. So a physical property describes the look or feeling of a substance, while a chemical property describes the tendency of a substance to transform into a new substance. Okay, anything that will be describing how a substance transforms into another one, that is going to be termed a chemical property. For example, let's look at this car right here. When this car was first built, if you look at a new version of this car, or if you look at this car when it was new, you realize that this car has deteriorated a great deal, right? And it is a chemical property of iron to transform into rust. So if you look at this car was built using iron, and eventually, because the car was exposed to air, it was exposed to moisture, it eventually rusts, and that is because it is made up of iron. So in this case, describing how the car has rusted over time is going to be a chemical property of iron. Okay. Now let's talk about a physical change. A physical change is a change in the physical properties of a substance. Okay. Example you will have is boiling. When you boil water, for example, what you will realize is that you are supplying energy to the water molecules. And so this energy is kinetic energy. So when this water molecule is supplied with enough kinetic energy in the form of heat, the molecules will start moving around faster. And when they have enough kinetic energy, they will change state. They will change from liquid into water vapor. Okay, they will change into a gas. And that is because the physical properties of the substance have been altered. Remember, now we'll be talking about the temperature. When you start heating the water, you realize that it feel, right? When you touch it, you realize that it becomes warmer and warmer again, and that is a physical change because it describes a physical property. Each time you describe a behavior or you describe the feeling of an object, that remains a physical property. And changing a physical property of a substance is what we call a physical change. Now, if you look at these three images, right, this is how your stove at home burns. This is how the stove at home burns. This we cannot describe this as a physical change This is going to be a chemical change. Why? Because when the gas from your stove, that gas is called methane. When methane is burning, what is happening is that the methane reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water, and this change gives a lot of heat. The heat that we use in cooking is as a result of a chemical change that methane undergoes when it reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water, and heat. Okay. Now, baking soda. If you add vinegar to baking soda, what you will realize is that a lot of carbon dioxide, you will see a gas being produced. That gas is called carbon dioxide and water. And this particular process, it absorbs heat. Instead of giving out heat, it absorbs it. Now look at this other image here. This initially was brown, just like the Statue of Liberty. Copper is a brown metal, but when you expose copper, what happens is that copper is going to react with carbon dioxide and water to form a greenish blue substance that we call patina. Okay, so all of these images here describe what? It describes a chemical change. All right, so now let's look at more scenarios of a chemical change. All right, so a physical change is a change in the physical properties of a substance, or a chemical change describes the transformation of one or more substances into another. Okay, a substance is identified not only by the kind of atoms it contains, but also by how those atoms are connected to one another, which is what we're going to see. During a chemical change, a new substance is formed as atoms rearrange themselves into new configuration. Again, I keep taking the example of baking a cake, right? If you look at when you mix flour with water, with sugar, with eggs and all of that, you mix all of that, the atoms in all the substance I just listed are going to rearrange into a new configuration when the cake is formed. That's why when you look at the cake, it's chemically different from the egg, from the sugar, from the flour that you had at the beginning. Okay, so that is a chemical change. So this is just an example of how the atoms will rearrange themselves. This is methane, right? These are the atoms of methane, these are atoms of oxygen. So when we react, when we on the stove at home, what happens is that these atoms are going to split apart, rearrange themselves, and form a new substance. New substances are going to be formed. So changes in which new substances are formed, we term them chemical changes. All right, let's check this out. The transformation of oxygen into ozone is an example of, again, because the identity of the substance is changing from oxygen to ozone, we will say it is a chemical change. Okay. A physical change imposes a new set of conditions on the same material. A chemical change forms a new material with its own unique set of physical properties. Okay. Both physical and chemical changes result in a change in physical appearance. Melting a piece of solid gold will be a physical change. When you melt a substance, you are not changing the identity of that substance. It is the same substance, but it's just that the substance goes from a solid into a liquid. Tarnishing a piece of silver will be when you tarnish a substance, tarnishing is a process that occurs when the substance or the silver reacts with oxygen or reacts with any other reactive metal. In this case, tarnishing of silver takes place most often when silver reacts with sulfur to form silver sulfide. All right. So we are going to end this section and then we will continue in the next lesson.